Welcome to Revenge Echoes, where stories speak louder than revenge. What you're about to hear might sound like fiction, but for someone out there, it's the truth they never got to tell. My name is Jennifer Hall. I'm 38 years old. And this is the story of how my 10-year wedding anniversary became the night I buried a decade of lies, and finally walked into the life I was meant to live. The Silver Lake Grand Hotel ballroom was drenched in gold and burgundy light, the chandeliers above twinkling like stars trying to burst through glass. Every table was lined with fresh lilies, and the scent of Napa Valley red, the wine Mason used to claim was worth every dollar, hung in the air. I had planned every detail. Every note of jazz drifting from the ensemble in the corner, every flicker of the votive candles set in crystal holders. It was supposed to be a night of love, renewal, a reminder that even the most weathered love stories could find their second wind. I wore the amber silk dress Mason gave me for my last birthday. I had never worn it before. He once said it made me look like the kind of woman people painted in museums. I remember blushing when he told me that. Silly me, I thought I was still the woman he loved. People were starting to gather. Smiles, laughter, the clinking of glasses filled the room. And then I saw him. Mason stood in the far corner, his arm grazing the waist of a woman I'd never seen. She was young. Cobalt blue satin dress hugging her like it was painted on. Her smile curled slightly as he leaned in to whisper something that made her laugh, his low, intimate laugh. The one that used to belong to me. My stomach dropped like someone had punched through my spine. I couldn't breathe. I tried not to stare, tried to convince myself she was just a colleague, a client, a plus one he forgot to mention. But deep down, I knew. And that's what made it worse, I knew, and I didn't want to believe it. Not tonight. Everything looks beautiful, Jennifer, my mother-in-law beamed, placing a manicured hand on my shoulder. Mason is a lucky man. Lucky. I smiled back, robotic. Thank you, Mom. I turned toward the bar and ordered an apple martini, gripping the glass so tightly I thought it might crack. My best friend Jenny came up beside me. Who is she? She asked quietly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because if I did, the dam would break, and I would drown right there in my high heels and dignity. The music softened, a cue for the speeches to begin. Mason was supposed to walk with me to the center of the room, hand in hand, just like we did at our wedding. But when I turned to look for him, he was still standing next to her. Her hand was now on his chest, and his didn't move away. I walked up alone. My voice shook slightly as I thanked our guests for joining us. I spoke about love, about building a life together, about 10 years of memories. I could hear my own voice sounding distant, as if it belonged to someone else, a woman who still believed in fairy tales. My eyes didn't drift toward him once. I couldn't risk it. When the toast ended, I stepped down from the platform and made my way toward the cake table. That's where they were standing now, Mason and the stranger. I approached slowly, deliberately, a smile fixed on my face like a mask. Mason looked surprised to see me. Nervous even. Sweetheart, he said, voice tight, I was just introducing. Hi, she interrupted. I'm Talia. I work in project development at FutureBuild. Mason's partner firm. Talia. Pretty name. Sharp chin. Fake modesty. Nice to meet you, I said. I extended my right hand. My left still held a glass of Pinot Noir. And then it happened. My heel caught on the edge of the new silk rug they'd rolled out. I stumbled. The wine sloshed. A red arc flew through the air and landed squarely on her satin dress like a bloody signature. The room gasped. Oh my God, I breathed. I'm so sorry. I reached for a napkin from my clutch, but Talia backed away like I'd struck her. This dress was custom made, she hissed, her eyes ice cold. I'll cover the cost, I said quickly. I really didn't mean. Are you always this clumsy? Mason snapped, his voice slicing through the music. My chest tightened. You just embarrassed me in front of my partners, he said, stepping closer. At the party you planned, no less. I blinked. You're overreacting. Overreacting, he scoffed. You always do this. You ruin everything. The jazz stopped. People turned. A hush fell over the room. Mason, I whispered. Not now. Please. Exactly why I have to say this now, he growled. Then came the slap. It cracked across my face with a sharpness that silenced the room. I staggered, the wine glass fell from my hand, shattering at my feet. My cheek burned. The sting shot straight to my heart. A second of absolute stillness. Then. Let me get this straight, said a voice from behind the crowd. You just slapped my sister at her wedding anniversary? Brennan. My brother. 6'3" of calm, controlled rage. He cut through the crowd like a storm in a tailored suit, eyes blazing. Mason paled. Brennan, it's not what you think. Brennan didn't flinch. You're a coward. You always have been. Then he reached into his coat, pulled out his phone, and handed it to me. Look. Photo after photo. Mason and Talia. Holding hands in Santa Barbara. Kissing in Napa. Laughing at a beach resort. The timestamp on one was my birthday. The glass that shattered wasn't just the one at my feet. It was every memory I'd ever held dear. I hired a PI, Brennan said softly. 6 weeks ago. I knew something was wrong. My hands trembled. Talia whispered, he told me you were separated. I looked her dead in the eye. And you believed him. Mason turned, eyes wild. You had me followed? No, Brennan said calmly. I protected my sister. Something you clearly forgot how to do. And then came the punch. It was so fast Mason didn't see it coming. Brennan's fist connected with his jaw, clean and brutal. Mason flew backward, smashing into the buffet table. A tooth clattered across the marble floor. Blood smeared the ground. Silence. My husband, the man I had spent 10 years loving, lay curled on the floor beneath a chandelier he once said reminded him of our honeymoon in Paris. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood tall. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt awake. I don't remember the walk out of that ballroom. I remember Brennan's hand on my shoulder, steady like an anchor in a storm. I remember the silence, the kind of silence that follows an explosion, where no one wants to be the first to speak. And I remember the clinking of broken glass beneath Mason as he tried to sit up, a streak of blood trailing from his mouth. But I didn't look back. Not once. My cheek still stung when we reached the car. Brennan opened the door and waited for me to get in before starting the engine. He didn't speak, didn't ask questions, didn't offer hollow comforts. He just drove. The city passed us by like a blur, and in the quiet hum of the ride, my world fell apart in the gentlest way, piece by piece, without resistance. When we got home, my home, our home, I hesitated at the front door. The same door Mason had painted blue because he read somewhere that blue made guests feel welcome. The same door where we'd kissed after our honeymoon, after he carried me over the threshold like we were a rom-com come to life. Now, it was just wood and paint. No magic. I stepped inside, and the air felt different. Hollow. Like someone had vacuumed all the love out. I took off my earrings, placed them carefully on the kitchen counter, then peeled the amber dress off my skin and folded it neatly onto the chair. I stood there in silence, bare and bruised, the chill of betrayal threading its fingers down my spine. I didn't cry. I wasn't ready to cry. Instead, I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at the framed photo of our wedding day on the dresser. We looked so young. So happy. But that wasn't the truth, was it? That photo was a lie we framed and displayed to make ourselves believe we were okay. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Caroline Hall, a voice said, calm, sharp, professional. This is Rachel Vaughn. I'm an attorney. Brennan referred me. I blinked. Oh. I saw the photos and video from last night's party, she continued. Assault witnessed by dozens of guests, documented infidelity, and likely a pattern of emotional abuse. You're in a strong position. I leaned against the wall. I don't know if I want to fight. Then don't think of it as a fight, she said. Think of it as reclaiming what's yours. There was a long silence before I finally said, okay. Where do we start? By Monday morning, word had spread like wildfire. Mason had been suspended from Triarch Design, pending an internal review. Several clients had reached out to the firm expressing concern about aligning their brand with controversy. One headline read, Architect celebrating 10-year marriage slaps wife in public, gets knocked out by her brother. The photo of Mason on the ground, bloodied and dazed, was already circulating in design circles. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't spoken to anyone. But the internet did what it does best, it spoke for me. Talia disappeared from Instagram, her agency page wiped clean of her bio. Mason, on the other hand, tried to do damage control. But it was too late. His reputation was in free fall. On Tuesday afternoon, Lisa came by. She didn't say I'm sorry or you didn't deserve this. She just placed 2 cups of iced matcha on my kitchen table, took one look at my face, and whispered, I'm proud of you. I didn't respond. We sat on the porch and watched the sprinkler turn lazily in the yard. I gripped my cup like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. I never liked him, Lisa said softly. But I didn't want to say anything. You looked so determined to make it work. I was. Too determined, she added gently. I nodded, eyes stinging. Do you think I was blind? No, she said. I think you were hopeful. There's a difference. That weekend, I met Rachel in person. Brennan came with me. I wore jeans and a sweater, no makeup. I didn't want to pretend anymore. Rachel had already prepared the paperwork. Divorce. Asset division. Alimony. Property claims. The whole fortress of legal retaliation. He's not contesting anything, she said. His lawyer knows the press damage is already severe. Mason's only request is that we keep this out of the papers. I laughed, a dry, bitter thing. Too late. I signed the documents. Every stroke of the pen felt like releasing a decade's worth of chains. The woman sitting across from Rachel wasn't the same Jennifer who planned an anniversary down to the jazz trio and wine selection. That woman had been erased. This one, she was rebuilding. The days blurred. Mason called twice. I didn't answer. He emailed once. I didn't read it. Brennan intercepted a voicemail where Mason begged to talk like adults. I told him to delete it. By the end of the month, the house in Oakland no longer felt like mine. So I left it. I packed a few things: his books, my pottery wheel, the espresso machine Mason always mocked. I left the wedding china, the framed photos, the couch he insisted we get from Italy. I didn't want souvenirs from a marriage built on infidelity and silence. I moved to Santa Barbara. A small apartment by Cabrillo Boulevard. It wasn't glamorous. But the sound of the waves greeted me every morning, and at night, I could hear seagulls crying somewhere in the dark. I spent the first week doing nothing. I walked the beach. Ate dinner alone. Slept with the windows open. Let myself be lonely without rushing to fix it. Then one day, I opened my old laptop. Before I married Mason, I had been a curator. I worked in museums. Helped design exhibitions, rewrote interpretive materials, researched provenance. It was quiet work. Beautiful work. But Mason said it was niche. That it didn't scale. I gave it up after we married. He made it sound like a favor. You don't need to work anymore, he said. Let me take care of you. Funny how being taken care of eventually felt like being erased. I emailed an old colleague Gemma, who now directed a museum in Ventura. I told her I was thinking of doing consulting, independent, flexible. Did she know anyone who might need that? Her reply came 2 hours later. I do. Me. Come in next week. That's how it started. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to build something far more powerful than revenge. I was about to build a new life, with no apologies, no compromises, and no need for anyone else's approval. Ventura was a 30-minute drive from my little sanctuary in Santa Barbara. The first time I made the trip to meet Emma, I kept the windows down. The wind tangled through my hair, salt from the ocean brushing my skin, and for a moment, I felt like I wasn't driving towards something new, I was driving away from everything that once drowned me. Emma met me at the museum entrance, arms wide, her curly red hair still wild and untamed, just like in grad school. She hugged me tight, then held me at arm's length and said, "You look different, Jen." I feel different, I told her honestly. The museum she ran was small but filled with heart. It focused on regional arts, native crafts, immigrant stories, forgotten histories that deserved better than being buried under digital noise. She walked me through the galleries, showed me the outdated exhibit boards, the lighting that cast awkward shadows on sculptures, and the corners that had been collecting dust since before the pandemic. I don't have a huge budget, Emma said, but I trust you. Do what you think this place needs. Rewrite everything. Reimagine it. I did. For the next 3 weeks, I poured myself into the project. I worked from my living room, from the cafe down the street, sometimes from the beach with sand between my toes. No one stood behind me demanding updates. No one told me to tone it down or speed it up or make it shinier for donors. I was in control again, for the first time in years. And it wasn't just work. It was healing. I spent quiet evenings with Brennan on speakerphone, him reading aloud ridiculous news articles and sending me photos of the dog he finally adopted. Her name's Gracie, he said. She growled at a banker today. I think she's your spirit animal. Lisa sent postcards from all over the country. Ohio. Maine. Louisiana. She wrote one sentence on each, "You deserve every good thing." I kept them in a little wooden box beside my bed. I didn't date. Didn't scroll through apps. I wasn't interested in proving anything to anyone. I didn't want validation, attention, or even companionship. I wanted peace. I wanted to hear myself think again without someone else's judgment in my head. And for the first time since Mason, I did. Then, 3 weeks after starting the Ventura project, Emma called. It's beautiful, Jen. People are already saying it feels like a different place. More alive. You've got magic in you. I smiled quietly, feeling something stir in me that hadn't in a long time, pride. A few days later, I signed a second contract. A historical center in Solvang needed help reimagining their Scandinavian immigrant exhibit. Then came a third. And a fourth. My consulting business didn't just begin, it bloomed. I worked when I wanted. Took on clients I believed in. Said no without guilt. I was finally shaping a life that wasn't built around someone else's needs. And the more I worked, the clearer it became, I hadn't lost anything the night Mason slapped me in front of 100 people. I had been set free. One golden afternoon, as I finished sketching layout notes for a new exhibit, my phone buzzed. Brennan. I answered immediately. You sitting down? He asked. Should I be? Mason was arrested this morning. I blinked. What? Triarca's internal audit uncovered everything, Brennan said. He funneled client project funds into personal accounts. Used them to pay for vacations with Talia, first-class flights, even transferred money to an offshore account. My hand went still over my sketchpad. They handed everything over to the district attorney's office. His former partner, Tom, was the one who filed the report. Mason was arrested at his lawyer's office this morning. I didn't speak. Not out of shock. Out of clarity. It all made sense now. The fancy dinners he never let me come to. The work trips to Napa. The way he started paying cash for everything toward the end, no paper trails, no questions. Are you okay? Brennan asked softly. I'm fine, I said. And I was. I made myself peppermint tea, sat on the balcony, and watched the waves roll in. It wasn't joy I felt. Not satisfaction either. It was something quieter. A stillness. He was gone from my world. And whatever storm he was caught in now, it wasn't mine to worry about. A few days later, Lisa texted, Talia's officially divorced. Her husband filed for nothing. She got exactly what she gave, 0. I didn't reply. I didn't even want to think about them anymore. They had each made their beds. Now they were just lying in the mess. The last time I checked, Mason's face had disappeared from his firm's website. The bio that once bragged about his design awards and magazine features was wiped clean. I heard through the grapevine he was negotiating a plea deal. But that wasn't my business. I had other things to focus on, like the cultural center in Paso Robles that gave me full control over a new native arts exhibit. I poured my heart into it, designed every light, rewrote every wall panel, curated every artifact's story. On opening day, I stood in a hidden corner out of view, when a little girl whispered to her mom, "It feels like walking into a fairy tale." I didn't cry. I just smiled. That night, back in Santa Barbara, I wrote in my journal. It was something I'd started doing since the move. A new habit. A new voice. I wrote, on the day he was arrested, I didn't feel anything. That was the greatest freedom of all. I'd walked so far, I couldn't even remember his face clearly. And that's how I know I'm finally free. And I was. It was around that time, maybe a month after Mason's arrest, that I finally understood what peace really meant. Not the kind you perform at dinner parties or post about online. No, I'm talking about the real kind. The kind that settles into your bones. The kind that doesn't ask permission to exist. I woke up most mornings before the sun fully crested over the horizon. I'd make my coffee with that old machine Mason used to scoff, said it was too loud and too retro. But it still made the best espresso I'd ever tasted. I'd sip it slowly on the balcony, wrapped in a sweater, while the waves whispered below. No headlines. No scandal. No tension. Just me and the sea. The museum in Paso Robles was a huge success. The director asked me to stay on as a seasonal consultant, helping to curate traveling exhibits. The best part? She paid me more for 2 months of work than I'd earned in a full year at the museum job I gave up for Mason. I was starting to feel like myself again, only stronger. Smarter. Softer in the places that mattered, sharper in the places that didn't. Then one evening, while I was preparing a talk for a design symposium in Monterey, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. It read, "I saw your photo on Monterey's event page. You look well." There was no name. But I didn't need one. I knew exactly who it was. Mason. I stared at the message for a full minute, the quiet hum of my space heater filling the room. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply. I just let it sit there, like a fly trapped behind glass. There was a time I would have written back. Maybe out of curiosity, maybe out of some self-destructive pull toward closure. But not anymore. That message didn't make me angry. It didn't make me sad. It felt like a tiny pebble tossed into a wide, still ocean. No ripples. No reaction. Just nothing. And that nothing? It was the most powerful thing I'd ever felt. Lisa called that same night. She was back from her trip and wanted to catch up. We talked for an hour, about everything and nothing. She told me she was proud of how I'd handled everything. "I've been thinking a lot about you lately," she said. "How you walked away from all of it. How you didn't need revenge. You just rebuilt." "Maybe," I replied. "But you know what the real revenge is?" "What?" "Living better. Happier. Freer. And not needing him to see it." Lisa laughed. "That's why you win." After that call, I poured myself a glass of white wine, sat on the balcony, and let the breeze tangle my hair. The sky was streaked in lavender and rose, and I thought about all the versions of myself I'd had to bury to become this one. The woman who bit her tongue. The woman who made excuses for bruised feelings. The woman who stayed quiet in rooms where she should have roared. They were gone now. Not forgotten. Just laid to rest. A week later, I was invited to speak at the Monterey Contemporary Art Museum's grand reopening. I had worked with their team for months, helping redesign their exhibition layout, revamping their interpretive content, and creating immersive experiences for their visitors. Standing at the podium that night, in a sleek black suit with my hair pinned up and my voice steady, I spoke about light, material, and emotional language in museums. About how spaces could make people feel seen. I wasn't Jennifer, the wife who planned anniversary parties. I wasn't Jennifer, the woman with the bruised cheekbone and a shattered heart. I was Jennifer Hall, cultural consultant. Business owner. Artist. Architect of stories. I got a standing ovation. Not because of my past, but because of the future I was shaping, with my own two hands. When I got home that night, I found another message waiting for me. "You've changed." Still no name. Still him. I didn't reply. I just muted the number. He had no idea who I was anymore. And I wasn't about to explain. A few weeks after that, Brennan called again. "News just broke," he said. Mason's firm settled with their biggest client. They're paying out millions in damages. He's personally liable for a large portion. I didn't say anything. And get this, Brennan continued. He's being sued for breach of fiduciary duty by his old partners. His license might get revoked. I sipped my tea, watching the waves. Karma's got good aim. "You want me to forward you the articles?" "No," I said. "I don't need receipts anymore. I've already been paid in full." There was a long pause, then Brennan said something I'll never forget. "You know, Jen. I used to think justice meant making someone suffer. But watching you? It's different. You just disappeared from his story and wrote your own. That's real power." And maybe it was. I didn't need to burn his house down. I didn't need to drag his name through the press. Life had already handed him consequences. But me? I was free. I was flourishing. I was finally, completely me. The morning after Brennan's call, I walked to the beach barefoot, just as the sun was rising. The air was still cool, the sand damp and firm beneath my feet. I didn't bring a phone or a notebook. I didn't need music or coffee. Just the ocean. Just the horizon. I stood at the edge where water met land and whispered a simple truth to myself: I'm not broken. I'm just new. The tide rushed over my toes like a confirmation. When I got back to my apartment, there was an email waiting for me, subject line, proposal for partnership. It was from a museum in Seattle. They'd seen my work in Monterey and wanted me to lead a full reimagining of their cultural heritage wing. It was a 6-month contract. A generous one. I stared at the screen for a long time. This wasn't just a job offer. It was the kind of opportunity that would have once made Mason proud of me, if he ever believed in what I did to begin with. But now, it wasn't about what he would have thought. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about the life I'd carved out with no one's help but my own. I accepted the contract. By spring, I was flying up to Seattle once a month, staying in a cozy Airbnb with plants on the windowsill and a tea kettle that whistled like something from a children's storybook. I spent my days surrounded by art, history, and quiet professionals who respected me because I was good, not because I belonged to someone important. Every time I walked through a new exhibit I had touched, I felt another layer of grief peel away. One afternoon, during a team lunch, a young designer turned to me and said, "I read about your Monterey exhibit. That was yours, right?" I nodded. He smiled. "That exhibit changed the way I think about design. You've got this, clarity." Clarity. That word stayed with me for days. Because he was right. I saw things more clearly now than I ever had, especially my past. Clarity was what kept me from answering when Talia emailed me. Yes, Talia. It was short. Dry. Almost robotic. "Jennifer, I know I have no right to reach out. But I want you to know, I didn't know the full truth. I didn't know about the money or the lies. I didn't know he was still living with you when we met. I've lost everything, too. I just wanted to say that." I read the message once. Then again. And then I closed it. I didn't need to respond. Because there was nothing left between us to close. No chapter left unwritten. No apology that would rewind time. She had fallen for the same illusion I once did, a man who knew how to mimic love but not honor it. And now, like me, she was rebuilding. But her healing was hers to carry. Not mine to supervise. By summer, my apartment in Santa Barbara looked different. The walls were adorned with framed sketches from past projects. There were dried lavender bundles hanging by the window. My bookshelf overflowed with poetry and design anthologies. And the wooden box of postcards from Lisa had grown to nearly 50. One night, I added a new one. It wasn't from Lisa. It was from me. I wrote on it in thick black pen. "You got out. You stayed out. And you're still rising." Then I dropped it into the box. That week, I had dinner with Brennan. He drove down from Oakland, Gracie in tow, and we grilled fish on the tiny porch behind my building. "She's a little spoiled," Brennan said, handing Gracie a sliver of salmon under the table. "She deserves it," I replied, sipping wine. We didn't talk much about Mason anymore. But somewhere between laughter and quiet conversation, Brennan leaned forward and said, "Did you ever think this would be your life?" I looked around. The golden light spilling from my kitchen. The salty air brushing through the curtain. The sound of a happy dog and a brother who never left. "No," I said. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything. Not even a second chance. Not even the fantasy of a perfect marriage that never truly existed." That night, after Brennan left, I sat by the window and stared at the sea. And I thought, maybe I didn't need revenge at all. Maybe healing was the revenge. Walking away. Becoming untouchable. Thriving where someone once hoped you'd fall apart. That kind of transformation didn't come wrapped in rage or fire. It came quietly. Slowly. Like waves carving stone. It came with knowing your worth and never letting someone else name it again. The summer rolled gently into early autumn, and with it came a softness in the air, a new kind of quiet that didn't feel like absence. It felt like breath. Like ease. Like the kind of silence you earn after surviving a war no one else saw you fight. I spent my days juggling museum projects, taking long walks by the beach, and sipping mint tea in the cool evenings. The Seattle installation was going well. I had even been asked to teach a workshop at a small design institute in Carmel. My calendar was full, but my heart finally had room. No noise. No guilt. No pretending. And then, out of nowhere, I received a letter. A physical one. In the mail. It was handwritten on thick ivory paper, the kind that tries to look expensive. The return address was from Oakland. I knew what it was before I opened it. I almost tossed it. Almost. But curiosity won. The letter was from Mason. Jennifer. I'm not sure where to begin. But I've had a lot of time to think lately. Too much time, honestly. The world I built is gone. The firm, the money, my reputation, it's all dust now. I have no excuses. I won't pretend I didn't destroy what we had. I know you probably don't care, but I thought you should hear it from me. I'm facing charges. Real ones. My attorney says I'll likely lose my license permanently. Talia's gone. She left after everything came out, and honestly, I can't blame her. I still see your face sometimes. Not the angry one from the ballroom. The quiet one. The one that used to look at me like I was the only man in the world. I took that for granted. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say it. To put it somewhere real. You were the best part of my life. I hope you're happy. Mason. I folded the letter, slipped it back into the envelope, and tucked it away in a drawer I never opened. It didn't hurt to read it. That surprised me. I felt nothing. No surge of anger. No twinge of regret. Just distance. Like I was reading the final words of a character I'd outgrown. That night, I poured a glass of white wine and watched the waves again. The ocean didn't care about apologies. It kept rolling. Kept cleansing. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. A few days later, I stood in front of a room full of young designers at the Carmel Institute, sharing my story, not the scandal, not the betrayal, but the recovery. The art. The return to self. I told them, sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do as a woman is to stop explaining yourself. Stop shrinking. Stop apologizing for outgrowing someone else's comfort zone. They nodded. A few scribbled it down. That night, after the session, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. My mom stayed in a marriage like that for 30 years, she whispered. She never left. I think you're the first person I've seen actually come out the other side. I didn't know what to say. So I hugged her. And in that moment, I understood that my story wasn't just mine. It was medicine for someone else. Back in Santa Barbara, the seasons began to shift. The days got shorter. The wind a little sharper. But I felt stronger than ever. Lighter. As if shedding that past had taken a weight I hadn't realized was crushing me. Then came one final twist. Brennan called again, this time with a smirk in his voice. You're gonna love this, he said. Guess who reached out to me? Who? Tom, he said. Mason's old business partner. I raised an eyebrow. Why? He wants to partner with you. What? He's starting a new firm, something smaller, more ethical, focused on community-driven design. He saw your work at the Monterey exhibit. Said he was blown away. He wants you as a consultant. Possibly more. I stared at my phone, stunned. Mason's partner. The man who once dismissed me as just the wife. Now he wanted to work with me? Do you want me to say no? Brennan asked. I can tell him you're not interested. I thought about it for a long moment. No, I said finally. Tell him I'll consider it. But he's going to have to do more than send flowers and flattery. Brennan laughed. You're dangerous now. No, I said with a smile. I'm just free. That night, I journaled again. I wrote. They thought they could reduce me. Shrink me. Break me. But all they did was hand me the tools to rebuild, bigger, brighter, bolder. I am not what happened to me. I am what I chose after. And those choices? They were only just beginning. It was late October when I finally stood in front of the space that would become my biggest project yet. Tom's new firm had acquired a historical building in the heart of downtown Santa Barbara, an old train station converted into an open-concept design hub. He had kept his word. No gimmicks. No shortcuts. Just a clean slate and a team of architects, designers, and community artists who actually cared about integrity over image. And he wanted me to lead the narrative direction of the firm's first public exhibit, a timeline of the city's cultural evolution, from its indigenous roots to its present-day creators. I remember walking the length of the station floor, sun pouring through tall windows, dust motes dancing like confetti in the air. And I remember thinking, this is mine. Not the space. Not the firm. But the power to decide. To direct. To shape something that mattered. For the first time in my adult life, I was a woman answering only to herself. Tom and I met over lunch the next week. It was surreal. The man who once rolled his eyes when I gave Mason feedback on firm presentations now listened to my every word with focused attention. He didn't bring up Mason once. He didn't have to. Everyone knew. That part of the story was over. After finalizing the project, I flew up to Seattle for one last review of the heritage exhibit. As I stood in the center of the hall watching visitors engage with the stories we brought to life, a woman in her 60s approached me, tears in her eyes. "I wanted to thank whoever designed this space," she said. "My grandmother's story is on that wall. She came here in 1948. I never thought I'd see her legacy honored this way." I smiled. "I designed it." She took my hand in both of hers. "Then bless you. You gave my family something we never knew we needed." And right there, in that moment, I realized something profound. The best revenge was not success. It wasn't power. It wasn't even the satisfaction of watching Mason's world crumble from afar. It was this. Creating something that mattered. That healed. I flew back to Santa Barbara that same night, fell asleep with a calm heart, and awoke to a new message in the morning. This time from Mason's attorney. "Ms. Hall, my client has requested to settle all remaining financial obligations regarding the divorce privately and with discretion. He asks only that no further statements be made to the press, and that he may retain the artwork in your former home." It was almost comical. He was trying to salvage the last remnants of dignity. I typed a short reply. "Mr. Evans. There is no press. There never was. Only truth, witnessed and unchangeable. He may keep the artwork. They were never mine to begin with. Jennifer Hall." No emotion. No fight. Just closure. Pure and simple. Later that month, Brennan drove down again, this time not to check in, but to celebrate. We toasted the successful Seattle launch, the new Santa Barbara project, and the quiet fact that I had now surpassed Mason's reputation in the field we once tiptoed around together. "Guess you got the last word," Brennan said, handing me a glass. I shook my head. No. I stopped needing one. He looked at me, pride shining in his eyes. "You're different now." "I know." We didn't say more. After he left, I sat out on the balcony, a new book in hand, a soft shawl over my shoulders. The waves rolled in below, the sky brushed with that dusky lavender that always came right before nightfall. And I thought about all the things I used to believe. That love could fix everything. That silence was strength. That loyalty meant staying even when staying broke you. I had been wrong. But mistakes are only tragic when we don't grow from them. I'm not bitter. I don't wish Mason harm. In fact, I hope he finds whatever truth he was running from. I hope Talia heals in her own way. And I hope anyone who saw what happened that night in the ballroom remembers it not as a scandal, but as a beginning. Because it was. It was the end of one life and the quiet birth of another. One I built. One I earned. And one I'll never apologize for. As the waves curled into the shore and stars blinked awake above the Pacific, I raised my glass, this time not to anyone else. Just to me. To the woman who survived. To the woman who rebuilt. To the woman who didn't just rise from the ashes, but danced in them. No one saw me coming. But now that I'm here, I'm never going back. Caroline's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about transformation. About reclaiming your name, your peace, and your future. She didn't seek revenge with fire, she chose freedom. And sometimes, that's the most powerful ending of all. What would you have done in her place? Could you have walked away with your head high like Jennifer did? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Revenge Echoes, where stories speak louder than revenge.